Welcome to Cooking Like a Guy. Today we're going to make buttermilk scones the fast and easy way. First thing you need is a large mixing bowl along with measuring cup, one for liquid, one for solid goods. The one for liquids will have a lip on it. Don't use a coffee cup because your results will be way off. We'll also need a measuring teaspoon, a measuring half teaspoon, and a measuring quarter teaspoon. You'll need a whisk, a spatula, a butter knife, a brush, baking pan, parchment paper, wire rack, and small container. The small containers are actually used to put out your measured ingredients so that when you start, everything can go by really quick. So first thing I'm going to do is put in my 2 cups of pre-measured flour. Then to that, I'm going to add my quarter cup of sugar. And then I'm going to add my baking powder, which is a half teaspoon, followed by some baking soda, which is a quarter teaspoon, and finally a quarter teaspoon of just salt. Using a whisk, I will mix the ingredients together. And when I'm satisfied that everything is mixed together, I'm now going to add my butter. You're adding 1 stick of butter, which is equivalent to a half a cup of butter. And you should use unsalted butter. I don't have unsalted butter, which is why I actually reduced the amount of salt that I've added to this recipe. And what you're going to do with this butter is basically you're just going to cut it up with a knife. So you want it to be cold. And you want it in chunks. You don't want melted butter. Just nice chunks all cut up. And there we go. Half a cup of butter is in there. I'm going to take a spatula and just mix powder into butter. And actually you can just go in there with your hand and tear it up. The nice thing about the flour mix is that the butter really won't stick to you because it's covered in flour. And again, what I have is this crumbly mix, and that's the consistency you want. And you only get that when your butter is cold. Okay? So now, to this, I'm going to add my 3/4 cups of buttermilk. My extract of vanilla, that's going to be 1 teaspoon. You're going to mix that, and one other thing that I like to add, and that's me, you don't have to add it for this recipe, is raisins. I just love raisins. So, I don't measure it, I just toss them in there. It adds a sweetness to the consistency of the scones. And now, we mix this with the spatula, and the idea here is not to make cake batter. It's just to moisten up the mixture so that it can take some shape. Because what you're going to do is you're going to knead it a little, not too much. And by the way, this is the thing where you actually use your hands. So I'm going to knead this dough, and not a lot. Really what I'm looking to do is just get all the dry mixture into this moist ball. And when it's all in there, I'll probably knead it like 2 or 3 times. Kneading is just flattening it out and rolling it over. And there. We're ready. So, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in half and roll it into a ball. Now, some recipes will tell you to put it in a separate container to do that. I don't. Once you've rolled it into a ball, you flatten it out, inch to half inch. And then I do the same thing with the second one. And why do I do this? Because I don't like a big giant scone pie. I like mine to be smaller. Now you could conceivably just make one giant scone pie and that'll work. It's just personal preference. As you see, I have a baking pan on which I've put parchment paper. Usually parchment paper is available around the holidays. It's just a paper that you can put into the oven. It won't burn. And it's great because you don't have to grease your baking pan. And it's easier to clean up afterwards. Now what I'm doing is I'm just scoring the pie with a butter knife. And the reason for scoring the pie is so that when it's baked, it comes apart really easy. And I would have thought that this would have just baked close, but it actually doesn't. So there you go. We are now set. One quick thing you might want to do before you put them in the oven is take a little bit of buttermilk and a brush and just brush on some buttermilk. This will give it some color and just add to that browning look. And you don't have to. It's just a little extra thing. I'm just dabbing on, not really over soaking it. Of course, you want to make sure it's a clean brush. This just happens to be a barbecue brush. You know, it comes with those bottles sometimes of barbecue sauce. There we go. Set your oven for 400 degrees, 20 minutes, middle of the rack. I'll show you the results in a sec. It's been 20 minutes. We have our wire racks out, and this is what came out of the oven. And it looks gorgeous. The way you can tell if it's done is you can put a toothpick in it. If it comes out dry, then it's set. And the golden color usually gives it away. The buttermilk enhanced that quite a bit. So until next time, enjoy buttermilk scones.